something occurs that you weren't even told was a risk of the procedure you had, it's really critical that you get to an attorney really as soon as possible to evaluate that.
Are you or a loved one the victim of medical malpractice, and do you know what to do? Well, that's what we're going to ask the lawyer today on this episode. Hi, I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com. My guest is attorney Jasper Abbott with the Warshauer Law Group in Atlanta, Georgia. Jasper, thank you for making some time and answer our questions today.
No problem.
So let's just start at the beginning. What is medical malpractice as far as the law is concerned?
So basically, the law imposes upon doctors or nurses or any healthcare provider sort of a standard that they have to meet in providing care to you or a loved one. And when they don't meet that standard, they committed what colloquially we call medical malpractice, when they provide treatment that's below that standard.
And is it sometimes hard to determine who is responsible? Is it always ultimately the doctor, or could it be nurses or the hospital or any number of those?
It could be any number of individuals. You have plenty of scenarios, especially in like a hospital setting, where the doctors provide appropriate care, but the nursing care has been substandard. So it can be any number of individuals depending on the circumstances that you're dealing with. So it isn't necessarily one person's more responsible than the other. They all have a sort of joint duty to provide appropriate medical care to you, regardless of whether or not they're a nurse, they're a doctor, they fall into any of those categories.
Now, Jasper, a lot of medical procedures are just naturally risky. Sometimes things go wrong. I think we call them a bad outcome. How do you determine what is medical malpractice and what is simply a bad outcome?
So every medical procedure does have risks, but you are told, or you should be told, about those risks when you have that procedure. So if you have a procedure where you're told these are certain risks that might occur, then and one of those risks occurs, that might lead to not being medical malpractice. But when a risk occurs that you have not been told is a natural sort of risk of this procedure, and that happens, then you might have the circumstances of medical malpractice.
Can someone who's been a victim, can they count on the doctor or the hospital or others involved to go, you know what, there's been some malpractice here? Or is it the kind of thing that's going to take somebody in your job to figure out?
Really is one of those things you have to come talk to someone in my position to really figure out. You really is something that you have to get your own personal evaluation from an attorney, along with the people they work with, because we work with doctors. Here in our office, we have a in-house physician to sort of help evaluate those type of claims. So it's not something the hospital is going to voluntarily tell you. Almost 9 times out of 10, they're not going to claim any fault or any responsibility for those things. They're just going to tell you bad outcomes happen. So it's really something that you need to get evaluated yourself.
So what are some tips that maybe you would have for people to, if they're not even sure, so something happened, something didn't go right in whether a procedure, surgery, whatever it is, how can they know whether or not they need to contact an attorney?
I would say you look at, so whenever you have a procedure or anything like that, you're dealing with some symptoms. What you're going to receive are traditionally papers, sort of discharge papers, discharge instructions, those type of things are going to sort of tell you things to look out for. And if your symptoms don't align with sort of the things to look out for on those forms, that's something where you should probably turn to an attorney. Or if your symptoms are particularly severe for even those things that are listed on the possible outcomes, you should probably turn to an attorney to sort of get more information to evaluate that.
Is it helpful, Jasper, to get an attorney involved as early as possible as far as gathering evidence and testimony and that sort of thing?
It is absolutely essential that you get an attorney involved as soon as possible. One of the major issues with medical malpractice is typically throughout the nation, there's a 2-year, what is called statute of limitations. So 2 years from when the treatment occurred is when you have to file the lawsuit. But before you can even file a lawsuit, you need to have the claim evaluated. Which means you need to obtain medical experts to sort of evaluate the medicine and tell you whether or not you have a legitimate claim. And that can take a fair bit of time, as you can imagine. So it's extremely critical in medical malpractice cases to sort of, if you have really severe symptoms that just seem abnormal from what you've been told about that procedure, or something occurs that you weren't even told was a risk of the procedure you had, it's really critical that you get to an attorney really as soon as possible to evaluate that.
I would imagine some of these cases can lead to death. Is it the sort of thing that the survivors, the loved ones of the victim could, do they still have a claim in these cases?
Absolutely. So a lot of medical malpractice cases fall within the wrongful death category, which is where someone has died as a result of the negligence of someone else, and the heirs of the estate or their loved ones, or typically a spouse or children, can bring a case based on that unfortunate occurrence.
People's lives are turned upside down in these kind of situations, Jasper. What they're thinking, on top of all that, I don't know that I can afford somebody to do the investigation and the expert witnesses and all that's involved. What would you say to them?
I will tell you, most reputable medical malpractice attorneys will not charge you anything in order to evaluate your case. We put effort in investing at the front end to be able to evaluate these claims, which is why, for example, in my office, we have a in-house physician to help us evaluate these medical malpractice cases. And a lot of reputable medical malpractice attorneys either have an in-house physician or nurse and have made those investments in order to evaluate the nature of your claim and to make those assessments. So if you have an attorney that is asking you to pay something, you can find an attorney that will tell you, no, we're doing this $0 for you unless we recover money on your behalf, which is how most of our law offices function.
And is there any cost if somebody's not even sure if they have a case for that initial consultation with you to figure out, do I even have a case to pursue or not?
No, there's absolutely no cost even for that initial evaluation. You're going to give us the facts, the information. We're going to gather the records, and then we're going to sort of begin our in-house procedure to evaluate that claim. And if we feel we need sort of outside help, we've also have doctors and institutions and et cetera that we can call to sort of get that evaluated on the outside as well. And we're going to make all of that initial investment, and it's no cost to you whatsoever.
Jasper, lots of great info today. I appreciate you making some time to answer our questions.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been attorney Jasper Abbott with the Warshauer Law Group in Atlanta, Georgia. If you want more information or you're ready to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, make sure to visit askthelawyer.com. And also please take a sec to like, share, and subscribe by clicking below. Thanks for watching. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com.